The US market closes at its highest level since April 2020. The Dow Jones gains for the 7th straight day as big banks Morgan Stanley and Bank of America rally on strong earnings. Stocks in the Asia-Pacific trade higher on a strong handover from Wall Street. The gift Nifty is also implying a higher start for the Indian market. Crude prices rise in optimism as China commits to rolling out policies to restore and expand consumption. Lower US inventories and impending supply cuts from Russia also support. IndusInd Bank delivers a strong first quarter. Net interest margin is at an 8-year high, while asset quality is at the best in 10 quarters. In key earnings lined up today, watch for numbers from L&T Finance, Tata Communications and Canfin Homes. The G20 finance ministers meeting ends without a communique on differences over the wording of paragraphs on the Russia-Ukraine war. However, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman says all agenda items received widespread support. On the proposed crypto framework, the RBI governor says it recognizes the right of individual jurisdictions to ban cryptos if they wish to do so. Good morning in the Mumbai News Centre. I'm Sonal Bhutra. You're watching Power Breakfast. Those are the top headlines that we are tracking on this Wednesday morning. But first up, as we always do, let's take a look at what the Asian markets are doing. The global setup is looking really strong after strong earnings that we got in the US markets. And that is something that reflected in the major indices as well. Asian markets largely higher, barring Hang Seng, which is down around 222 points as we speak. The Taiwanese index is higher in trade right now. We also have the likes of Nikkei, which is surging right now, 1% higher there. Kospi too is higher in trade right now. Gift Nifty will come up for you on the screen. Of course, we'll compare it with Nifty futures as well. That one is indicating an implied open of 35 points in the green. So again, it will be an open in the green. Above that 19,800 mark is what this one is indicating. We'll have to see whether we sustain those levels or not. Let's talk about the US markets now. Wall Street ended Tuesday's trading session higher, with the Dow Jones being the day's outperformer, led by stronger than expected bank earnings. The index surged over 1% at close, notching a 7-day winning streak, which is the longest since March 2021. The S&P 500 was up 32 points, while the Nasdaq Composite closed over 100 points higher. Shares of Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, all of them surged in trade after reporting a better than expected second quarter earnings. Meanwhile, retail sales for the month of June came in weaker than expected despite a drop in inflation. Okay, let's listen into some market opinion coming in from Goldman Sachs chief US equity strategist David Kostin.
Right now, the S&P 500 around 4,500 is at our year-end target, and it reflects, in our assessment, the idea of the economy continuing to grow. The idea of a 2% GDP growth is consistent with our economics forecast, but more importantly, if you look at cyclical stocks relative to defensive stocks, that's trading, pricing at roughly a 2% GDP growth in our estimation. So based on the market is fairly valued, and that's kind of how we think about it.
All right, that is the global market action looking good as far as the cues that we are getting from there are concerned. But how will these cues impact our own markets? We have a lot of earnings that we need to track as well. Our team is joining in to tell you just that, the trade setup, the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and the action from the F&O space as well. Hey guys, a very good morning to all of you. Reema, let me come across to you. What is the market setup looking like today?
Pretty good. So the opening is, as you pointed out, the gift Nifty is higher. We've got a top-down bullish setup with global markets continuing to rally. The Dow higher for the 7th consecutive session as it popped close to about 1% on the back of strong numbers from Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, etc. For our own markets, though, yesterday, we faltered a bit. There was a bit of profit booking. We started off straight away at record high levels. We scaled that 19,800 mark. But after that, the markets did consolidate. There was a little bit of profit booking and the mid-cap sulked in trade. So analysts are still pointing out that this is a very healthy correction, a much-needed correction after the run-up that we've seen. It's not that there is a trend reversal. Markets are likely to see some weakness on and off here and there, and those dips should be bought into. The outlook for banks continues to be fairly robust. So after HDFC Bank delivered a steady set of numbers, IndusInd Bank too has delivered strong numbers. So at least that pocket of the market on the earnings front is looking up. IT, we had LTTS, that's L&T Technology Services. They reported a subdued numbers, but so have the rest of the IT pack. So subdued numbers from IT continues, yet stocks have continued to see buying. Today, you're going to watch for Canfin Homes, L&T Finance Holdings, Century Textiles, Mastech, Tata Communication. In terms of flows, it's been impacted by the large block that we had in Amara Raja. But just to give you the numbers, the DIIs net sold 1,317 crore, while the FIs bought 2,115 crore. Back to you.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for all those cues. A lot of stocks will be in focus as well. Abhishek has that list.
Well, to begin with, IndusInd Bank, it has the lowest risk in the balance sheet in last 7 years or even more, as the RWA to advances ratio is the lowest that I have seen in last 28 quarters. Net interest margin of 4.29% is perhaps the highest that you are seeing in last 8 years. PNL NI is ahead of our poll. PAT is just marginally below our poll, but almost in line. L&T Tech net profit is on line of expectation at 311 crores. EBIT margin has come in at 17.2%. We were working with a number of 16.8%. ICICI Lombard, the net profit is up 12% YOY, gross premium is up 19.7% YOY, and combined ratio has come down to 103.8% versus 104.1% in the same quarter last year. Adani Transmission, there is a Q1 update. Transmission availability remains above 99.77%. They have added further capacity to their operational network, and distribution loss is actually down to 4.85% versus 6.95%. Network 18 net loss is at 38.7 crores when compared to 33.2 crore in the same quarter last year. Revenue is at 3,239 crore when compared to 1,340 crore in the same quarter last year. TV18 broadcast, the net profit is up 31.5% YOY. Revenue is at 3,176 crores when compared to 1,265 crore in the same quarter last year. CIE Automation, Automotive net profit is up 59.7%. Revenue is up just 4.7% YOY, and you have margin which has expanded to 16% versus 13.8% in the same quarter last year. Federal Bank, now they have done preferential issue, so IFC will invest about 959 crore into the bank. IFC's holding in the bank will go up to 8.1% post this fundraise versus 4.95% that they had earlier. And BL Kashyap, they have got a new order worth 369 crores from DLF Home Developers. Back to you.
All right, okay, those are all the stocks on our radar today. It's a long list, but let's talk about the F&O space as well. Manglam is joining us now. Manglam.
Well, the record rally for the markets continue. The Nifty ended at a record high yesterday as well. However, it was off the day's high, and most of those cuts came by in the last couple of hours of trade itself. And that's largely on account of the Nifty Financial Services expiry. Remember, the previous trading session, we had seen a big rally in the Nifty Bank. That was undone in the second half of trade yesterday, and that was largely on account of the weakness that we saw in Nifty Financial Services itself. Now the GIFT Nifty, as you all pointed out, is indicating a positive start. So on the way up, yesterday's high on the Nifty, 19,820, is an important level to watch out for, and important level to sustain above as well for the markets to move higher, because as of now, the setup indicates that there could be some resistance out there. No problems with regards to cash market flows coming in. 2,000 crores came in from the FIs yesterday. The DIIs sold about 1,300 odd crores, so net inflows were positive. In fact, what also was positive was the FII interest in index futures. They added about 500 crore worth positions, and now the FII net long positions on the index are close to around 98,000. So that's one mark we'll have to keep an eye out on. Speaking about marks we need to keep an eye out on, the put-call ratio has moderated to 1.34, still at the higher end of the range, but has seen some moderation. What hasn't seen moderation is the India VIX, which is nearing 12. So that's one mark we need to watch out for too. In terms of active options for the ones that expired this week, we have the 19,700 put, which saw a fair amount of writing for a premium of 45 odd rupees. 19,750 put writers were also rather active, telling you that the base of the market continues to move higher even as we face resistance on the way up. 19,800 call writers have been pretty active for a premium of 50 rupees, telling you that the range for the market has been maintained around that 19,650 at the lower level to around 19,850 at the higher level itself. A couple of stocks we'll keep an eye out on. A big open interest surge and a stock price surge we saw on Polycab yesterday, 5.5% higher. So long additions, and Infosys reports its numbers tomorrow. But yesterday itself, we saw a stock rally of nearly 4% with a lot of long positions backing that counter too.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Manglam Rima. And Abhishek, for all those cues, we'll do one thing, slip into a break. When we return, IndusInd Bank reported a strong set of first quarter earnings. We'll get you an analysis on that when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Still tuned into Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. It's time to talk about some important earnings now. IndusInd Bank reported a strong set of first quarter earnings. Abhishek is joining us with the earnings fine print.
Well, it's an absolute serene result from IndusInd Bank, given the fact that the balance sheet risk is at the lowest that you are seeing in last 7 years or 28 quarters or even more, despite the fact that loan growth has been pretty strong in the unsecured or high-yielding portfolio. So what has been good in the results over the last few quarters is that for continuous 10 quarters in a row, YOY and quarter-on-quarter, you are seeing growth in operating profits. The net interest margin on a quarterly basis is at 8-year high of about 4.28%. Now, RWA, that is risk weight asset to advances ratio, that's come down to 110, 111% from 125, 130% that they had few years back. Annualized slippage ratio of about 1.9% is perhaps the lowest in last 11 quarters and second lowest in last 16 quarters. Asset quality, gross NPA ratio and net NPA ratio at 1.94% and 0.58% are perhaps the lowest that you are seeing in last 10 quarters. Now, what's not been good in Q1 FY24 results, the CASA ratio, but that's an industry level, the CASA ratio is declining. So CASA ratio is the lowest in last 24 quarters, dipping in below 40% level. Cost to income ratio or operational efficiency, that's deteriorated a bit, and that ratio is at 22 quarter high of 45.9% when compared to 44.9% in the previous quarter. In terms of PNL versus ARPOL, the NII has come in at 4,867 crores. We were working with a number of 4,822 crores, and PAT has come in at 2,124 crores. We were working with a number of 2,127 crores. It's as close as that. Back to you.
Okay, all right. So that's about IndusInd Bank, an important stock that we'll be watching out for today. Moving on, the G20 finance ministers and central bankers meeting in Gandhinagar ended yesterday, with Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman saying there was broad support for India's core agenda items, which included reforming multilateral development banks and a framework for cryptocurrencies. On cryptocurrencies, the Finance Minister and RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das said nations recognize the risk cryptocurrencies posed, and the Financial Stability Board also proposed a framework for global cryptocurrency regulation. The meet also ended without an official communique due to differences between members over the wording related to the Russia-Ukraine war. Let's hear out the Finance Minister's comments after the meet.
Members welcomed the high-level recommendations of the FSB on crypto asset activities and also the global stablecoin arrangements. There were several members who did say it is so good that India has brought this issue on its priority and is working very well on this.
Okay, all right. With that, we'll slip into a break. Up next, we'll get you all the cues from the commodities market. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Well, it's time to talk about commodities now. Manisha Gupta is joining us with all the updates. Hey, Manisha, good morning.
Morning, Sonal. Thank you for that. Well, the overnight markets have been on the positive side because we've seen the US dollar index decline yet again to those 15-month lows. And there are statements now from ECB signaling a pause on rate hike from September. Canadian inflation has dropped within control range for the first time since March 2021, and that has been supportive. That led to the gold prices trading at a 7-week highs right now into the market. It also has been a 2% of a jump up in the crude oil prices. The U.S. inventories may show a decline when that data is released today in the evening. Also, the Chinese officials are suggesting policy rollout to support local consumption, and that has been supportive not just for the crude oil prices, but metals as well. So when you look at steel, copper, aluminum, all of these metals have seen some support in the Asian markets right now.
Okay, so some positive cues coming in from the commodity markets. Thank you, Manisha, for that. So let's stay with commodities and listen into some important opinion coming in from Citi's Edward Morse on why he remains bullish on crude oil.
Inventories are very low. They're at the low end of the 5-year range, both for crude oil and more importantly for gasoline. And we are seeing a pickup in demand that has been surprising. The pickup is not as great as a normal summer would be, but in the U.S., we've had revisions upward in demand. People are driving more. The economy is going well. And with the limited amount of inventories, given the fact that we have hurricane season really approaching, we had more named storms than ever in the month of June in the Atlantic Basin. So the risk seems to be on the upside for us, even though we're 2/3 of the way, not quite, more than halfway through July, almost 2/3 through it, and we haven't hit the $80 mark yet. But we think the demand is there to pull it up, and the accidents that could happen are on the bullish side rather than the bearish side.
Okay, see upside risk for the oil market. That's the word coming in from Citi. But another commodity which is seeing a surge is tomato, which the prices continue to soar across the country. The government has procured 300 metric tons of tomatoes from Andhra Pradesh and Maharashtra to sell at subsidized rates in market that are seeking a steep price hike in Delhi NCR. Consumers Affairs Secretary Rohit Kumar Singh said prices are expected to ease by the first week of August as more stock arrives.
We have a fund mandated by the government, which is called the Price Stabilization Fund. And that fund is precisely for this purpose, to infuse commodities in the market for price correction. So I think as we speak, around 300 metric tons have been procured and infused. Very soon, arrivals are expected in Madhya Pradesh, Aurangabad, and some areas of Maharashtra. And I think by first week of August, the prices will start considerably coming down.
Okay, that is an important story. Of course, we'll keep getting you updates on this one. Let's also get you the big political story from last evening. The BJP-led NDA will face off against the opposition's India in next year's parliamentary elections. The 26-member grouping of opposition parties will be known as the Indian National Developmental Inclusive Alliance, and in a joint statement, the parties have pledged to provide an alternative political, social and economic agenda. The 38-member NDA includes the AIADMK, the Shiv Sena and the Ajit Pawar faction of the NCP, among others. Over close to 2/3 of these parties do not even have a Lok Sabha presence. Okay, on that note, we'll take your leave on this edition of Power Breakfast, but do stay tuned. Bazaar Morning Call comes up next with all the market action.